Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm just reading through Galatians, and we're up to chapter 2. Of course, I'm not giving detailed commentary. You can get lots of commentaries on these works. I'm simply taking you through reading through the Greek and explaining some of the grammar and some of the perhaps slightly more tricky vocabulary. So chapter 2, Epeta dia decatesaron eton palin anebein eis hierosoluma metabanaba sum paralabon kai titon. And afterwards, and then we get dia plus a genitive here so later then for the epeta. Literally through, so after 14 years. Now this is quite remarkable because that's quite a long period of time, especially when it was 3 years, he says earlier, since he went up to Jerusalem the first time. So this is 17 years after his conversion. Anyway, he says he went anebe from anabino, I went up again, into Jerusalem. Meta Barnaba, this is a genitive here, with Barnabas. Sum paralabone, the labone of course from lambano, this is the aorist participle, and then para, beside, and then sum, with, together with. So we might say also taking along with me Titus. So I went up to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking along with me also Titus. Anebe de kata apocalypsin. An interesting expression here, use of kata. So I went up, this is from anabino again. Kata, literally according to, perhaps in response to, a revelation. An anacalypsin, from third declension, feminine noun. Kai anethemein autois to euangelion ho keruso entois ethnesin. This is from anatithemi. It's an aorist middle here. So I lay before them, I presented to them, literally I placed I placed before them the gospel, which, agreeing with euangelion, which I proclaim entois ethnesin among the Gentiles. Katidian de. Now, before I move on, katidian is an idiomatic expression, quite common in Greek. It simply means privately. Idios means one's own, katidian, privately, not as opposed to publicly. So, but privately, tois dokusin. This is a very odd expression here. Again, I'll leave it to the commentators to speak more about it. He's going to use the word a bit later in this chapter. Well, perhaps not in a sarcastic way, but certainly in a slightly odd way. It's often translated those who seem, i.e. seem to be important. So it's from docio. This is a dative plural participle here. So those well thought of, those held in regard. Me pos eskenon trecho a edramon. Lest, now this is the indefinite pose. You see it's enclitic, it puts the accent back on the previous word. So it has the sense of perhaps or perchance, maybe. But of course he doesn't, it's something that he's not going to think is true, but it says lest perhaps. Trecho, I am running or edramon, or I ran, kenon, literally into an empty thing, again idiomatic for in vain, to no purpose. We get the verb, now the verb is trecho, which is an irregular verb. The future is dramumai, using the same root as here, and this is the aorist edramon. So this is the same verb, but it uses different roots. Trecho, dramumai, edramon, first three principal parts of this. Al udititos hosun emoi Helenon, anankaste peritomestheni. But neither Titus, the one with me, and then parenthetically here, being a Greek, that is, he wasn't circumcised. So, also it's although he was a Greek, anankaste, nor was he compelled. This is an aorist passive from anankasdo. You get ananke, necessity, so anankasdo, to compel. Nor was he compelled, peritomestheni, this is an aorist passive infinitive, to be circumcised. Now you can see the roots of this here. The tum is from temno, to cut. So the verb is peritemno, which is to cut around, and hence circumcise, which is simply the Latin equivalent, of course. Dia detus pares actus pseud adelphus hoi tenes pares aelthon kataskopesai ten eleutherion hemon hen ekomen en Christo Jesu hina hemas katadoulosusi hoi sudi pros horon examen te hupatege hina heialetheia tu euangeliu diamene pros humas. So a long sentence. But on account of, or because of, pseud adelphus, false brethren. Now this is an interesting word here. It's para plus ace. The ac here is from ago, and the gamma from the root ago becomes a chi before the tor here, which often happens in Greek. So the ac here is actually from ago, to lead. So it's those who were brought in besides, literally, and hence brought in surreptitiously. Some translators, I think quite rightly, use the word infiltrate. So because of false brethren who have infiltrated, hoi tines, this is hoi plus tines, the very ones who. So those who, we would say in English, it's the very ones who, that's the typical use of this hoi with tines, who, and then we get pares aelthon. We've had pares with the ag root, now we get pares with erchomai, aelthon, in the aorist. So the very ones who perhaps came in secretly, or came in surreptitiously, or perhaps infiltrated. Kataskopesai, aorist infinitive from kataskopio, to spy. Kataskopio is the standard word for spying, so to spy on the eleutherion, our freedom, hein, which ekomen we have in the Messiah Jesus. Hina, in order that, katadoulososi, this is a future here, you can see from the sigma, that they might enslave, katadoulo is the verb, that they might enslave us. Hois, udi, for whom neither, now the pros horan is for a moment, and it's dative here after this examen, I think. So this is from aco. Aco is I yield. This is the aorist from aco, and the kappa becomes a psi with the sigma. So to whom not even for a moment did we yield. And then we get this funny dative here, perhaps a dative of manner or something, by in submission, from a hupatasso. So tassos, to arrange or organise, hupo, under. This is really a military term, to submit. So to whom, not even for literally for an hour, but we would say for a moment, hora is an hour, did we yield in submission. Hina, in order that the aletheia to euangeliu, the truth of the gospel, diameno has a range of meanings. You can look this up in the various dictionaries, but it can mean to continue, to remain steadfast, to be preserved here might be the sense here. So in order that the truth of the gospel might be preserved, pros humas, to you or in regard to you. Apadeton dokunton einai te. Now this sentence is difficult because it's an anakaluthon. That is, Paul starts out to say something and then he gets sidetracked and he never really completes all of the grammar. So I'll just translate literally of what this is. Now he's using this dokio as we saw up here, tois dokusin, those who seem to be important. He's going to use it again later. So from those so from the ones who seemed einai te to be something, so from the ones who thought themselves to be someone, and then he breaks off hopoio poti es in uden moi diafere, whatever, so the hopoio, what sort of ones ever they were, for the poti, uden moi di, it differs in respect of nothing for me. So whatever they were, it makes no difference to me. I couldn't care less. So from those ones who think that they are someone important, whatever they are, I couldn't care less. It makes no difference to me. And then we get the editors put a semicolon here, and we get another thought bubble really from Paul. Prosopon hotheos anthropu u lambane. Now in the Septuagint you get this, and it's a Hebraism really, you get this expression of lambano plus prosopon. To be a respecter of persons, literally to say, to take things perhaps at face value almost. To be a respecter of persons. Now in biblical Greek and in New Testament Greek, you'll see it in the Epistle of James as well, you get lots of these nouns and adjectives and verbs that are formed by combining these together. So you get prosolampsia, respect of persons, and so on. So it's just really here it says, but God does not, doesn't show partiality, is no respecter of the face of a man. So we have to paraphrase, God is no respecter of persons. Now the editors put another dash. Again, this is an anakaluthon. The grammar doesn't really fit nicely here. Emoiga hoi dokun tes uden pros an ethento ala tunation idontes hoti pepistumai to euangelion tes aquibustias kathos petros tes peritomes. And I might just stop there because there's a comma, but the sentence goes along all the way down to the end of verse 9. So for those, those who are held in regard, again he's using this not quite sarcastically, but certainly slightly disingenuously, I think, for this dokuntes. He's referring to Peter and company. So those who were held in regard, this is from pros anatithemai. It's again a complicated word. It doesn't occur terribly often. It's pros plus ana plus a middle form tithemai from tithemi. It's used in Xenophon to take up an extra burden on oneself. So in the context of an army or in terms of authority, to take an extra burden on oneself. Here it has more the sense of to communicate or to impart something. So he says those who are held in regard imparted nothing to me. That is, they didn't. They added nothing to me, that is, to my message. So they had nothing extra to say that I didn't already know. That's basically what he's saying here. Allah, now, tunantion is to enantion, but the opposite. Idontes, seeing hoti that, pepistumai, this is passive here, and it means I was entrusted. So pistuo is I believe, but in the passive it can mean I was, God put his faith in me. So I was entrusted with the gospel of the akrabustia, of the uncircumcision, literally. So this is an abstract noun. The akrabustia is the foreskin, literally. So I was entrusted with the gospel, we would say, for the uncircumcised. But it's literally the gospel of the uncircumcision. Kathos, for kata plus hos, just as Peter was for the peritomes, again with from temno, to cut, regarding the circumcision, but we translate it as the circumcised. You get similar usages to this, of course, in Romans. Hoga in egeses petro es apostolen tes peritomes, in ergesen kai emoi es ta ethne, kai genontes ten karin ten dothe san moi, Jacobos kai Kephos kai Ioannes, hoi docuntes stuloienai, dexias edokenemoi kai Barnaba koinias, hinahemas est ta ethne, autoi de est ten peritomen. For the gar, for the one working, the one being active in. This is referring, of course, to God. This is from ergio, energio, to work in, so to be active in. So the one who was working in Peter, with regard to the apostleship of those who are circumcised, apostole is an abstract noun. So the one working in Peter in regard to his apostleship for the circumcised, en ergesen, same verb as here, this is just the aorist, this is the aorist participle, was working also, was operating or working also in me with regard to the ethne, literally the nations, but generally translated the Gentiles. Kaikonontes, and knowing the grace, the one being given, this is a passive, aorist passive participle, it's feminine, accusative, so the grace which had been given to me, Jacobos, James and Cephas, that's Peter of course, and John, those, seeming to be, or held in regard as stuloi, pillars, with our expression pillars of the church and so on. So James and Cephas and John, those held in regard to be pillars, they gave Dexias their right hand to me. They gave to me the right hand of fellowship to me and to Barnabas. So Dexias is the right, it's just a general abstract word for right, so the right hand. So they gave to me the right hand of fellowship, koinonias, to me and to Barnabas, in order that we understand. Now there's no verb in this section here, unfortunately, so we have to translate we might go to the ethne, to the Gentiles, but they to the circumcised. Alone, so this is an adverb here, only, so the only other proviso was that we might keep in mind, we might give thought to the poor, it takes a genitive, we might give thought to the poor. Hot here hoc kai esputus in auto tutor poiesai. So often in Greek you get the relative pronoun before the antecedent. So it's really this very thing which also this is from Spudasdo, I was keen poiesai to do. So the only instruction he gave was that we make mention of, we keep in mind the poor, we have memory of the poor, that very thing which also I was keen to do. And that's the first part of chapter 2.